Leah Carter crouched behind a broken wall, her heart hammering in her chest. The ground shook with every footstep of the Varkai soldiers outside. She pressed her back against the cold metal and tried to steady her breathing. The moon of Valaris had always seemed quiet from a distance, but up close, it was full of danger. Human outposts were small and weak here, and the Varkai were not forgiving of trespassers. Leah's mission had been simple: check the satellite relays on the northern ridge and report any unusual activity. But when she arrived, she realized too late that something had gone wrong. The Varkai were already waiting. Their sharp eyes had spotted her movements, and their long claws could crush bone as easily as paper. She had run, hiding behind rocks and ruins, but eventually she had been surrounded. A massive figure stepped into the clearing. Leah froze. He was taller than any human she had ever seen, with broad shoulders and sharp features. His hair was dark, almost black, and his eyes glowed with a strange golden light. He moved with the confidence of someone who knew he owned every inch of the land. Leah understood immediately who he was. Adrian Holt, the Alpha King of the Varkai, the one every other Varkai feared, was standing before her. "You are far from your home, human," he said, his voice low and deep. It shook the air, but it did not shout. Leah could feel his power, not just in his voice, but in the way the ground seemed to hum under his feet. She swallowed hard, trying to find words, but nothing came. Adrian stepped closer. His eyes studied her carefully, and she felt like he could see every thought in her mind. The Varkai soldiers behind him waited silently. They did not move unless he gave a command. "You trespass on Varkai soil," he said. "Do you know what the law says about humans who enter without permission?" Leah nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty, I know. But I was just checking our satellite systems. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Adrian did not smile. "Intentions do not matter. Only actions do. And you broke our laws." Leah's stomach sank. She had read about their laws, about the punishments for humans. She had known she might die if caught, but she had hoped it would not happen so quickly. She looked at the Varkai soldiers, hoping to see a hint of mercy, but their expressions were hard. Cold, unyielding. "You will face the trial," Adrian said finally. "You will spend one night in my presence. If you survive, I may spare your life. If you fail, you will die." Leah's heart stopped. She had heard rumors of this trial. Humans rarely survived it. The Alpha King's presence alone could break a person. His power was overwhelming, his mind sharp and strong. Spending a night in the same room with him was said to be like standing in a storm without shelter. Most humans could not endure it. She wanted to protest. She wanted to argue that she was innocent, that she had done no harm. But she knew it would not help. The Varkai did not negotiate. Once Adrian spoke, his word was law. Leah took a deep breath. She had survived worse missions before. She had worked on distant planets where storms ripped apart settlements, and alien predators hunted her every step. She could survive this too. She would have to. The soldiers escorted her to the fortress. The walls were tall and made of stone that shimmered in the moonlight. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, glowing faintly. Leah did not recognize the language, but she felt the energy radiating from it. The fortress was alive, or at least, it felt that way. Adrian walked ahead, silent, his eyes still on her. He did not speak again until they reached the main hall. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair in the center of the room. It was made of black stone, shaped in a way that seemed uncomfortable, but Leah obeyed. Every instinct told her to run, but the walls were high, the doors guarded, and the soldiers watching meant escape was impossible. The hall was enormous. Glowing runes covered the walls and ceiling, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to match Leah's own heartbeat. She felt the air thick with energy, a power that pressed against her mind and body. It was difficult to think clearly. She had to force herself to breathe steadily. Adrian did not sit. He leaned against a pillar, watching her. Leah could feel his gaze on her skin, in her bones, as if he was testing her strength, her spirit. Hours could pass like this, she realized. The trial was not only physical, it was mental. She had to endure his presence, his power, without giving in to fear. Most humans do not last. He said quietly. They scream, they faint, they beg for mercy. But you seem different. Leah forced herself to meet his eyes. I have to survive, she whispered. I want to survive. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger, but with curiosity. Why? Why do humans cling to life even when the odds are against them? Leah did not answer immediately. She thought of her family back on Earth, of her friends in the outpost, of the people who depended on her reports. She thought of the humans across the galaxy who were not yet prepared to fight or flee, who might need her knowledge to survive. Because we must, she said finally. Even when it is impossible, we try. Even when we are afraid, we do what we must. Adrian tilted his head. For the first time, Leah noticed a hint of respect in his expression. Perhaps that is why some humans survive, he murmured. Your spirit. It may be stronger than I thought. Night passed slowly. The rooms in the hall glowed brighter and dimmer with an unsteady rhythm, as if sensing Leah's thoughts. She clenched her hands in her lap, trying to keep from trembling. She could feel the pressure of Adrian's mind, a force that seemed to reach inside her chest. Every sound, every movement of his muscles was amplified in her perception. At times, she wanted to close her eyes, to block him out, but she knew that would be a mistake. He could sense fear and weakness, and any sign of submission would be her end. She had to endure. She had to show that humans could survive even in the most dangerous situations. Hours went by. Leah counted every breath. She listened to Adrian's movements, his quiet steps along the hall. He did not speak much now, but his presence alone was enough. She felt her strength waning, but she held on. She repeated words in her mind, reminders of her purpose, her duty, her will to live. Then, near dawn, something changed. Adrian approached her slowly, his eyes focused on her face. You are still here, he said, almost in disbelief. You have not faltered. You have not broken. Leah's lips were dry, but she nodded. I am still here, she said. I will survive. A faint smile appeared on Adrian's face, subtle but real. Few humans have done what you have done tonight, he said. Few have endured even a fraction of this power. You may live. Leah felt relief flood through her body, but it was mixed with caution. Survival did not mean freedom yet. She knew that Adrian's decision was final, and that she would have to earn his trust if she wanted to see another sunrise safely. As the first light of Velaris touched the fortress, she realized something else. This night had changed her. She had faced a force unlike anything she had known, and she had survived. The Varkai were strong, but humans could endure more than anyone expected. Adrian stepped back, giving her space. But his eyes did not leave her. Leah understood that the trial was over, but something deeper had begun, a connection between two species. A respect formed in the crucible of danger. The soldiers stepped forward to escort her back to the human outpost, but Adrian raised a hand. Not yet, he said. You will remain in the fortress for now. There is more to discuss before you leave. Leah's heart sank again, but she forced herself to stand tall. She had survived the night in the Alpha King's presence. She had endured the test. Whatever came next, she would meet it as she had met this trial, with courage, with determination, and with the unyielding strength of a human spirit. The fortress gates opened, the cold wind of Velaris brushing against her face. Leah looked at Adrian one last time before leaving the hall. His expression was unreadable, but she felt something there, approval, perhaps, or maybe curiosity. Either way, she knew that the night had changed everything. Humans were not weak. Humans could endure, and Leah Carter had proven it. Leah Carter woke before sunrise. The light coming through the high windows of the fortress was pale and weak, but it was enough to see the hall around her. She had slept for only a few hours after the night in Adrian Holt's presence, yet her mind was clearer than it had been in days. She still felt the weight of his power, the way it pressed against her mind and body, but it no longer frightened her as much. She rose carefully and walked to the edge of the hall. The Varkai guards were already moving silently, performing their morning duties. They did not look at her, but Leah could feel their presence, like shadows moving in the corners of her mind. She realized that every movement in the fortress, every breath and step, was controlled by Adrian. It was not fear alone that kept them alert. It was loyalty, respect, and the power of a leader who had earned it. Leah did not know why Adrian had allowed her to live. Humans rarely survived encounters with the Alpha King. Perhaps he was curious about her. Perhaps he saw something different in her spirit. She did not question it too deeply. Survival was enough for now. Adrian appeared silently behind her. His presence was calm, less overwhelming than the night before, but still strong. "You slept," he said simply. Leah turned to face him. "A little," she admitted. "I needed to rest. I couldn't think clearly otherwise." He nodded. "Rest will be important. You will need all your strength soon." Leah's stomach tightened. "Strength for what?" she asked. Adrian did not answer immediately. He stared at the distant horizon through the window, his expression unreadable. Then he turned back to her. "The Dracori will attack," he said. "Soon. They will not wait for diplomacy or caution. They strike without warning. You need to understand this." Leah felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard of the Dracori, a ruthless alien race that hunted humans and Varkai alike. They were strong, cunning, and relentless. If they attacked, survival would be a test of intelligence as much as strength. "What can I do?" she asked. "I'm just a technician. I can't fight like your warriors." Adrian's eyes studied her. "You survived a night in my presence. That tells me something about your mind and spirit. You may not have weapons, but you have knowledge. That knowledge may save us all." Leah nodded slowly. She realized that he believed in her, or at least in what she could do. That belief was a weight on her shoulders, heavier than any armor. She had never been a soldier, yet now her decisions could affect hundreds of lives. The alarm sounded before they could speak further. A sharp, vibrating hum ran through the fortress. Leah felt it in her chest. The Dracori were attacking. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Follow me," he said. "Stay close. Listen carefully." The hallways of the fortress were wide but filled with sharp turns and high pillars. Leah followed Adrian as he moved like a shadow, silent and precise. The guards shifted their positions, taking defensive stances near every entrance. Leah could hear the distant roar of engines outside. Explosions shook the walls. Adrian stopped at a control room, a chamber filled with glowing panels and strange machinery. Leah's heart leaped. This was her domain, her field of expertise. Even in fear, she felt a sense of purpose. She could do something here. "You will help me," Adrian said. "I need your human knowledge. You can detect their patterns, their signals, and help us prepare." Leah nodded quickly. She approached the main console and began analyzing the incoming signals. The Dracori ships were approaching from multiple directions, but Leah noticed a strange pattern in their frequency. Their attack was synchronized to destabilize Varkai's senses, using a high-frequency pulse that interfered with the fortress shields and alert systems. "They are using a disruptor," she said aloud. "If we don't block it, the shields will fail. We could lose the fortress before they even enter." Adrian's eyes gleamed. "Then tell me what to do." Leah moved quickly. She guided the guards and soldiers as they rerouted energy to counteract the pulse. Her human knowledge of electronics and signals worked perfectly with the alien technology. Adrian watched her closely, occasionally making small adjustments to the defensive grid. The Dracori ships hovered over the fortress like dark predators. Laser beams cut through the sky, and explosions shook the ground. Leah's fingers moved faster than she thought possible, rerouting energy, blocking frequencies, stabilizing shields. The Varkai warriors moved as Adrian commanded, their strength and speed amplified by their trust in him and now in her. Hours passed like minutes. Leah realized she was not afraid. Not completely. Fear had not left her, but determination filled the space where panic could have lived. She was helping save lives. She was part of something larger than herself. A sudden crash echoed through the fortress. One of the Dracori command ships had broken through the outer defenses. Alarms blared. Soldiers ran to intercept. Leah's eyes widened as she saw the alien commander stepping out of a teleporter. A tall figure in black armor, glowing red eyes fixed on her. Adrian moved instantly, placing himself between Leah and the intruder. The commander lunged at her, but Adrian's reflexes were faster. He grabbed the alien by the arm, spinning him to the floor with a force that shook the room. Leah felt a surge of adrenaline. She wanted to help, but she was unarmed. Instead, she ran to the control panel, rerouting energy to trap the intruder inside a temporary force field. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, but the intruder could not escape. Adrian glared at the commander. "You will not harm her," he said. His voice was like thunder. The commander growled but did not move. Trapped and defeated, Leah exhaled, feeling the first real relief of the day. She had contributed to the defense, even if in a small way. Adrian turned to her, a faint smile on his face. "You are valuable," he said. "More than most humans. Stay close, and you may survive this." The battle continued for hours. The Dracori retreated and advanced, trying different strategies. But Leah's knowledge and Adrian's leadership turned the tide. By midday, the Dracori were forced to withdraw, leaving the fortress intact but damaged. Soldiers cheered quietly, but Leah felt exhausted. She had never imagined that her life would depend on her ability to read signals and think quickly. Yet here she was, alive, and respected by the Alpha King himself. Adrian approached her as she caught her breath. "You did well," he said simply. "You were not afraid when others might have been. That is why you survived the trial. That is why you may continue to live among us." Leah looked at him, tired but proud. "Thank you," she whispered. "I only did what I could. I didn't want anyone to die." Adrian nodded. "That is human courage. It is remarkable. Varkai warriors rarely think beyond the battle. Humans endure in ways we cannot always understand." Leah felt a strange connection forming. The night in the hall had been only the beginning. Now, after the battle, she realized that Adrian saw more than her body. He saw her mind, her choices, her determination. She had survived both the trial of presence and the trial of fire. The fortress began repairs, and Leah moved among the soldiers, guiding them to fix broken systems. Adrian stayed nearby, watching her work. Other humans might have been afraid or proud, but Leah felt only focus. Every tool she touched, every adjustment she made, mattered. She was contributing, saving lives in ways that weapons alone could not. By evening, the fortress was secure. Soldiers moved with quiet efficiency, shields were repaired, and the remaining Dracori signals had disappeared from the scanners. Adrian approached Leah one last time that day. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but tonight you have earned this moment." Leah nodded. She felt her body trembling from exhaustion, but her mind was clear. She had survived the night with the Alpha King, and she had survived a battle that could have ended in disaster. She realized that humans were stronger than they seemed, and perhaps even stronger than the Varkai had believed. As she lay down to rest, Leah thought about the future. She knew that more dangers would come, more tests of courage and intelligence. But she also knew that she was not alone. Adrian Holt, the Alpha King, had recognized her strength. And now, she had a chance to prove that humans could endure, could fight, and could change the course of the galaxy. The night passed quietly. Leah closed her eyes, feeling the fortress around her, feeling the power of the Varkai, and feeling her own determination. She had survived the first trials. Tomorrow would bring more, but she was ready. Humans could endure almost anything, and Leah Carter was determined to show that to the galaxy. The day after the battle, Leah Carter walked carefully through the fortress halls. She was tired, but the work did not stop. Repairs needed to be made, sensors recalibrated, and systems checked. Every moment mattered. The Dracori might return, and the Varkai could not afford mistakes. Adrian Holt followed her silently. He did not speak much, but his eyes were always on her. Leah had grown used to the weight of his presence. It was not as frightening now. It was still strong, powerful, and impossible to ignore, but she felt more capable in his presence. She had survived the trial. She had survived the first battle. She could face whatever came next. Leah reached the central control room, where panels glowed softly and the repair crews were moving in an organized rhythm. She checked the incoming signals carefully. Most were minor fluctuations, easy to stabilize. But one caught her attention, a message hidden in the background noise. A whisper that seemed too precise to be random. Adrian stepped beside her, leaning slightly against the wall. "What do you see?" he asked. Leah pointed at the panel. "Someone is sending coded signals," she said. "It's not the Dracori. It's inside the fortress." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Inside?" "Yes," Leah replied. "Someone here is working against us. They are hiding their activity. If I follow the signal, I can find them." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Do it," he said. "But be careful. If you are wrong, it could be dangerous." Leah focused. She traced the frequency through the network of sensors. Her fingers moved over the control panel quickly, adjusting and decoding. Finally, she found the source, a hidden room behind one of the lower halls. It was small, dark, and unguarded. Whoever was there had assumed no one would find them. Adrian gestured for her to follow him. "We confront them together," he said. They moved silently through the corridors. Leah was amazed at how Adrian could blend into shadows, how his presence did not make a sound even when his size could have shaken the walls. She had never seen anyone move like that. Humans were fast, but Varkai were different. And Adrian was more than any Varkai she had seen. He was precise, calm, and lethal if necessary. When they reached the hidden door, Adrian motioned for Leah to step back. He opened it slowly. Inside, a Varkai council member was tampering with a control panel, clearly trying to interfere with the fortress systems. The Varkai warrior froze when Adrian's eyes met his, and Leah noticed a flicker of fear in the man's gaze. "You were caught," Adrian said, his voice calm but heavy with power. "Why betray your own people?" The man tried to speak, but Leah could see he was shaking. I thought humans would not survive," he stammered. "We cannot trust them. I wanted to show the council that the fortress cannot depend on outsiders." Adrian's eyes glowed faintly. "You are wrong. Humans endure. This one," he gestured at Leah, "saved lives today. You would have failed without her knowledge." Leah felt a small surge of pride. For the first time, Adrian had publicly acknowledged her importance. The Varkai council members stammered, trying to find words, but none were strong enough. Adrian's power pressed down on him like a storm. "You will report your betrayal to the council," Adrian continued, "and you will be punished. But the fortress survives because of humans, not in spite of them. Remember that." The man nodded quickly, and Leah could see the fear in his eyes. Adrian's judgment was absolute. There was no arguing. After the confrontation, Adrian turned to Leah. "You are more than just a technician," he said. "You have insight, courage, and determination. Humans may be weak in body, but your species is strong in spirit. That is why you survived the night, and that is why you survived today." Leah shook her head. "I only did what I could," she said. "I didn't think about being special. I just wanted to help." Adrian's gaze softened slightly. "That is what makes you strong. You act even when you are afraid. You endure even when others would fail. That is human courage, and it is remarkable." For a moment, Leah felt something she could not name, a connection, a bond forming not just from survival, but from mutual respect. She had seen Adrian as terrifying and impossible, but now she saw him differently. He was powerful, yes, but he also recognized strength in others. That recognition mattered. As the day moved on, Adrian called a council meeting. Leah was surprised when he asked her to attend. She had never been part of Varkai politics, but Adrian wanted her input. They gathered in the High Hall, the same place where she had endured the night. Varkai leaders from across the fortress filled the room, their expressions cautious, wary, and some even hostile. Adrian stood at the center, his presence commanding attention. "The Dracori have attacked," he said. "Our defenses have held, but the threat is not gone. We must prepare for future attacks. Humans have proven their usefulness. Leah Carter has shown courage and skill. We must consider her counsel." A murmur ran through the hall. Some council members shook their heads, muttering in disagreement. Humans were outsiders. They could not be trusted. But Adrian's power silenced them. His eyes swept the room, glowing faintly, and every voice fell quiet. "Humans endure," Adrian said. "Do not underestimate them. Do not underestimate what they can do when guided and respected." Leah Carter is one of them. Listen to her, learn from her, and act if you wish to survive. Leah felt her heart pound. She had never spoken before a council of any species, let alone the Varkai. But she had prepared herself. She knew that words could save lives, and she had to try. The Dracori use patterns we do not expect. She said, her voice clear. They try to destabilize our senses and confuse us. We can fight them, but we must use logic, observation, and strategy, not only strength. Humans can help you anticipate their moves, and together, we can defend the fortress more effectively. The council members shifted uneasily. Some looked at her as if she were bold or foolish. Others seemed to think, carefully, about her words. Adrian's eyes met hers, and she felt a spark of encouragement. You speak well, he said quietly, loud enough for only her to hear. Do not be afraid. You are not alone here. The council meeting ended with mixed reactions. Some were still skeptical, but Adrian's support for Leah was clear. Her position in the fortress, and in his mind, had changed. She was no longer just a human visitor. She was a valuable member of the team, someone who could influence decisions and contribute to survival. Later that evening, Leah returned to the control room. She was tired, but her mind was active. She began analyzing the Dracori signals again, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything that could give the Varkai an advantage. Adrian joined her, standing silently at her side. You do not rest easily, he said. I cannot. Leah replied, there is too much at stake. We might face another attack soon. We need to be ready. Adrian nodded. Humans think differently. That is what makes you dangerous in a good way. You see possibilities we might miss. That is why you survived the trial and the battle. That is why I value your presence. Leah felt a warmth in her chest. Recognition from Adrian Holt, the Alpha King, was more than she had expected. It was more than survival. It was respect. The night passed quietly. Leah worked on the signals until her eyes ached. Adrian did not leave her side. At one point, he placed a hand on the console, and for a moment, the pressure of his presence nearly overwhelmed her. But she did not falter. She had learned to endure. By the time the sun rose over Valaris, Leah had traced several hidden Dracori signals and identified potential weak points in their attack strategy. She presented her findings to Adrian, who nodded in approval. Well done, he said simply. Your mind is as valuable as any weapon. Remember that. Leah realized something important. Survival was no longer just about enduring Adrian's presence or fighting external threats. Survival was about proving her worth, showing courage and intelligence, and gaining trust. She was learning to navigate a world that had once seemed impossible. As she left the control room to rest, Adrian followed her. Tomorrow, he said quietly, we may face internal challenges as well as external ones. Be prepared. Leah nodded, her mind already turning over possibilities. She had survived the night. She had survived the first battle. Now she would survive the trials of politics, trust, and strategy. Humans could endure. She would prove it again and again. The fortress of Valaris was alive with energy, with tension, and with hope, and Leah Carter was determined to be part of its survival, its strategy, and its future.